There we go. We're live on a Tuesday, not Monday. I've lost the day. Today, we're delighted to be joined by our headline sponsors, Bottomline and the wonderful Kat Moy. And we're going to talk about all things survey today. So before I start, if I may, could I ask Richard, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience, who you are, who you work for, and a little bit of background about yourself, please?
Thanks, Jamie and Kat. So yeah, Richard Ransom. I head up solution consulting for Bottomline, looking after corporates, particularly in the areas of payments, which is a subject dear to my heart. I've been in this business for about 28 years now. So hopefully I have some insight I can add to the results of this excellent survey.
Thank you, Richard. And Kat, in case people don't know who you are, do you mind introducing yourself as well, please?
No problem. Hi, everyone. I'm Kat Moy, Head of Education for the Accounts Payable Association. Been with the APA not quite 2 years, but nearly now. But before then, I was an experienced AP manager. So I'm very excited to delve into our benchmarking report because obviously coming from the industry, it's always useful insights for me every year as to what we need to focus on for content.
Brilliant, thank you, Kat. And yeah, 2 years. So Richard, 20 plus years. We'll say 20 plus, Richard, to make you sound a little bit younger. I'm 30 plus, so we won't even talk about. And Kat, 2 years to the APA. And for those who don't know who I am, I'm Jamie Radford, the CEO and the founder of the Accounts Payable Association. So without further ado, thank you for everybody that's watching this live. Anybody watching this back on replay, you'll be able to get all the details and the links that's provided throughout this at the bottom of this page as and when we finish the recording. So let's quickly go over the details of what you're going to expect today. So we absolutely love the accounts payable industry, and one of the challenges that we all face in a back office function that really comes under its own challenges is really understanding where our pain points are. So part of the survey, the industry survey we ran alongside Bottomline, was to deep dive into lots of different areas. And I believe, Kat, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, but it's all done. It's ready. It's all in a produced state. So we've got it sitting on a shelf somewhere. And today's session is to go over not only how you get hold of the report, but to go over some of the key findings. And we've asked Richard, with his years of experience, not only in the payment section, but generally across the P2P space as well, to give some high-level commentary, and also our wonderful Kat to give commentary as well. So how did we get the survey? Well, we went out to our audience. We went out to all our ambassadors, our key influencers who get announced actually in a few weeks' time. And we went into our huge audience that we sort of support across the globe. So the report itself isn't just UK and Ireland focused. There's some global trends in there as well. Lots of industries, and you'll see when you'll download the report, the types of industry that sort of we support and go across. Even I was shocked at the amount of industries that completed the survey, which was phenomenal. But the key of what we're trying to achieve is really to give our audience, our members, insights of where the pain points are, and more importantly, where we're seeing some real growth, some areas that we can really improve on, and then areas where not so much concern, but with the support of people like Richard and the team at Bottomline, how can we improve, what can we do, and what we should be looking at? So in terms of the actual survey itself, hundreds of people completed the survey across a wide scale of individuals and organizations. That report itself, I'll mention it now before we go into the detail, will be available this week. So I've been reliably told, Kat, so I'm hoping it will be. To get hold of the report, you need to go to our website. So I'm going to quickly pop a banner on before we start. So if you go to that website below, the apassociation.com, go to our event page, /events, you will see a tab for Accounts Payable Appreciation Week, where Richard and the Bottomline team are supporting us live, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you can then download the whole week. It's called the Accounts Payable Appreciation Week. Anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's just a week where we celebrate all things AP and procure to pay. And we have events throughout the week, lots and lots of stuff, and I'll ask Kat to go into detail later. But more importantly, as you register your intent or your interest to attend the week, we will then send you lots of stuff. You'll get some templates, you'll get some industry insights, but more importantly, you'll get this report as well. And what we will do is follow up this report or the high-level commentary with Richard and Kat today, and we'll start to deep dive into some of the results either on another stream or live stream as today, or we'll do some of the live sessions. So I'm guessing, Richard, I know you're Mr. Punmeister, and I know you're up on stage with us on the 21st of May. But during the year, with our conference coming up and all that good stuff, we can delve into some of the detail of this report because, not giving away too much, some of the report details are phenomenal. So that's giving you some context. Hopefully now people are aware of how you get it. So download, go onto our website, register your interest in AP Week. You will then be shot an email from our organization where you'll be able to download the report. I believe it's live as of today after this live. And then more importantly, what we will do is we'll delve into detail with the team and Richard to give you some insights and our thoughts for the report itself. So, okay, right. Can I start with you, Kat, and then I'll jump over to Richard. In terms of the report, and we're not going to show it on screen today, we're just going to give some high-level findings. Was there anything in there that ultimately sort of gave you a wow, didn't quite realise? So it's sort of a high-level summary of your take of the entire report, if you don't mind, Kat.
Yeah, I think in terms of with working with the community and some of our members, there's nothing to me that's particularly shocking in the report. I think it's kind of what we all know are the common bugbears. I think there's just little things where maybe some of the numbers were slightly higher than I thought they would be. But again, if you've got all those different kind of industries, it may just be we haven't spoken to those industries before and they've got bigger challenges. There's still things around supplier management. And again, if anyone's watched any of my webinars in the past, it's because no AP department looks the same. Some people get involved with procurement, some people don't. So there's probably still that piece around silos we kind of need to delve into. There's still high levels of approvals, delays in internal improvements. So again, it's whether you dig that down into a lower level of, is it training, is it can't or won't? People hear me say that all of the time. But yeah, really, really interesting results. Some things sort of are starting to improve slightly from last year. But yeah, you kind of would have liked to have seen a sort of steeper curve of change. But change is always a bit of a resistance, as we all know.
Perfect, thank you, Kat. And Richard, same question. So at a high level, once you've seen all the results, was there anything that shocked you, anything that was similar? And what's your comments on a high level summary?
So surprise for me was how many payments are still non-electronic in our world of AP. It's a shockingly high amount in terms of the data, given that typically in the UK, it's about less than 1% of all business payments in the UK are check. So it's a very surprising piece of information, and we should really be moving away from them. I know there are different use cases where checks are just the only thing at the moment, but there are digital alternatives. There are different ways to do this. And as soon as you get that right, then that links into other things like payment failures and the inability to get good quality information about the payments you've made. So these things came up as well. So on the payment side, those were the really interesting ones for me. I think the focus now towards AI, improving processes, and that includes things like robotic process automation, machine learning. We're looking probably down the eyes of an AP agent in the future. But one thing that I found really fascinating on that was just how much of it there is going on. So how many people are thinking about that and not thinking about blockchain? That wasn't a surprise, but yeah, I think AI is that big thing, isn't it? That's the one that's going to make the biggest difference in terms of helping to round out the automation puzzle. So this automation number's not going up hugely every year, and I think AI is a thing that will massively accelerate that.
Thank you, Richard. And look, and just from my perspective, let me chip in with my 2 pennies if that's all right. So from a high level, I totally agree with both of you. I thought the detail that was behind the report was phenomenal. I really did. I thought that the questions were great. I know that we combined efforts between ourselves and the Bottomline team. So the questions were really good, clear and concise. And the results, yes, there were some great results in there, but probably to your point, Richard, the AI explosion, let's call it that, is clearly on the horizon. And I think it's happening in lots of different areas. So we all assume it's going to happen in automation and software, but it's happening all over the place. It's happening in supplier recs. It's happening in, like you said, AI agents, queries, resolutions. There's lots of AI being thrown around. But what was interesting from the results that I found or read through was that there was a lot of people that have been aware what AI is, but not a lot of people that are prepared for what the future looks like. And all I would say is that being in AP for 30 plus years, I've been talking very much around that, automation is never going to take your jobs, and AI probably won't take your jobs. And I say probably, it'll probably improve some of the roles, as we've talked about many, many times, but it's coming down at a faster pace. That's what I would say. The evolution of AI is absolutely coming down at a pace. We saw that in the results itself. So yeah, that's the bit that shocked me, but the results themselves were phenomenal. The questions I thought were really on point. And just to remind everybody, before we go to the next level of questioning, the key areas that we covered in the report were compliance and risk management, process efficiency and automation, cost and cash flow management, supplier and stakeholder relationships, tech and integration, people training and development. We covered the big section of payments and cross-border transactions, vendor and data management, and then we looked a little bit into our crystal ball and looked at the future of accounts payable. So next question for both, if you don't mind, is all around the actual initial observation. So we talked at a high level, if you like. Was there any sort of notable trends that you saw as you were reading through the data? Richard, again, because I know there's a big section on payments and you've sort of touched on it, but were anything in there that was sort of notable or any trends that you saw coming out of the report?
Yeah, what it feels like is that AP needs to get more control over its own payments destiny. So I think the silo thing became obvious as I read through the results, and things like payment delays, so how often they happen, so that's a really high percentage. So everyone has payment delays. I think sort of 70% of organizations say there's always payment delays somewhere. That's really interesting, and I think that's probably a feature of AP not always having control. So if people, other parts of the organization are making decisions for you on how you pay, that is going to impact everything up to your DPO as well. So it will affect how well your payments are made, whether there are mistakes made, how susceptible you are to fraud. And remember, that payment process is really important to working capital within your organization. So I think more collaboration, and I've talked before certainly about the idea of this payments champion. So someone who understands payments throughout the business, and that very, that role should really sit and could sit very easily within AP as a good arbiter of what looks good across an organization, because paying people is really important, and paying on time, because it affects a lot of the key metrics that you use. So I think that came clear. So areas that could be fixed easily with some collaboration with other parts of the business.
Perfect, thank you, Rich. And then, you know what, I absolutely totally agree that we talk a lot about silos and not working in collaboration, etc. And what this report clearly shows is the opportunity to do these sort of things. So totally agree with you, Richard. And again, around that payment side, we probably, Kat will probably nod or shake her head on this one, but we probably think that we pass a payment file over to our fellows in treasury or whoever, and somebody else does the magic and presses a button. The reality comes down to, in terms of sort of cash flow management, cash optimization, and all the good stuff that comes around that, we need to be a bit more responsibility, collaborate a bit more, and be the people that sort of control our own destiny. And I think that's exactly what you said there. So thank you for that, Richard. Kat, from your perspective, at a sort of trends, anything you've notably looked in that sort of came out of this from your point of view?
Yeah, so it actually kind of is in quite harmony with what Richard was saying there. So treasury is a massive thing for me at the minute, and I think it is sort of demonstrated in the report. Obviously, on the flip side, I was looking at the learning and development stats, and I think that's where that piece comes in, because if you think about it, Jamie, we've seen a lot of people in our, whether it's our influencers, our members, the career progression is more AP managers are becoming shared services managers. And even just this last couple of months alone, I've had quite a few of those people who've taken that journey come to me and go, all of a sudden I've got to understand treasury and I've never had anything to do with it. So again, it just goes back to that silo piece, and again, linking it to your career progression to kind of understand it a little bit better. And other than that, fraud is still prevalent. I don't think, again, it's not groundbreaking, but it is still prevalent and ties into people being a little bit fatigued by fraud. But that's kind of where the danger is, that people kind of get complacent, because we've already seen in the last week or two, is it M&S and Co-op have had cyber attacks?
Yep.
So it's just kind of always keeping fraud in people's mind, and how we keep it fresh and engaging for people so they don't sort of get fatigued and hopefully not get struck.
And I think you're right, Kat. And again, Richard, you must see this from your customers, but the challenge you have every year when Kat pulls together content for the year, where we do live events, webinars or masterclasses, you do run the risk a little bit of going over old ground. So fraud, believe it or not, is considered old ground, but it's so important. It clearly comes out in the payment space. It comes out in the transactional teams areas. It covers so much, the fraud and the compliance section. So although this year the focus for the Accounts Payable Association isn't just focused on fraud, what's interesting, it's still there. It's still very much in terms of what people should be aware of. And again, Kat, going back to your point, it really does start with the training and the support you give your teams, whether you come to us and we give you some training and support, or the internal training and awareness that you have. You need to be, all of the things that you'll find in this survey and the results are lessons, ultimately lessons that you can look at and indicate. And I think, as Richard said earlier, is that, all the things that we note from this and the notable changes and the sort of the tracking of the actual survey results themselves, these should be opportunities for you to improve your functions, your businesses or whatever for the end game. And the end game, let's be honest, is to pay invoices on time or ahead of time if you can, and actually then have a very clean supply chain. So yeah, great results again. So just taking it slightly on, if that's all right, in terms of deep dive. And again, if I come to you first on this one, Richard. So was there anything in there that you probably think we need to poke a little bit more at and probably needs a bit more further analysis of such?
So sadly, it is fraud. And I think the fraud fatigue thing is a really good point. And I know every conference you go to, we talk about it, but internal and external fraudsters adapt. So you can't stop talking about it because it's not going to go away. Now, tools exist. Now, our payments industry brought things like confirmation of pay to help in these processes, and it's amazing how many organizations don't use that. I think a deeper dive on how often people check the process around supplier onboarding. So this doesn't just happen at the payment end. When they're onboarding a supplier, how often do you check that database? It's actually very interesting talking to some group treasurers last week about sanctions. So they very much think it's AP's problem. It's P2P's problem. It's purchasing, it's accounts payable. You do the vendor onboarding, you check the sanctions. Something goes wrong, they'll have the conversation with the bank. But that was really interesting to me. So I thought Treasury would be, that's our problem. So this is another part of the onboarding and that checking your vendor. But sanctions lists update every day. So you need to be sure that you're checking and rechecking your data as often as you can, because these things change. So fraud, unfortunately, is a deeper dive area, and AI is going to make it easier for people to commit fraud. We've seen deep fake videos, deep fake audio already involved in fraud. So it's a very interesting area. But I think biggest takeaway is basically you've got to keep reviewing the process all the time. So just because you've done something for 2 years doesn't mean that makes sense now. So we see a lot of rekeying of information. You shouldn't be doing that. There's some complacency that's coming in. So it shouldn't take the shock of someone being defrauded to make them look at their processes. So boring, sad, but true. But yeah, we shouldn't be fatigued by it.
Hey, listen, Richard, never boring in the world of AP. We call ourselves rock stars for no other reason than it's never boring. But you're absolutely spot on that actually, it's the core information. It's the rubbish in, rubbish out approach. If you don't get it from the very start, you don't ask the right questions, you don't onboard suppliers in the right manner, and you don't control that flow, then please don't expect anything other than rubbish coming out the other end. So you're absolutely spot on. And again, your points are really, really valid. Fraud will never go away. They're just getting cleverer and cleverer. And we need to be just combating that with sharing information, doing these things where we do surveys, we do live events, sharing information throughout the communities to highlight and sort of where challenges are, but it needs to be always on the table. We can't just allow that to go out. Although there is some fatigue, we get that, but at the same time, it should be sort of center point in terms of the challenges that we face. So Kat, your idea in terms of sort of anything you think that we need to drill down away in terms of analysis, in terms of the report itself?
Yeah, obviously I would be remiss as the head of education if I didn't sort of look at that learning and development. It was I think that was maybe one of the only statistics that was a little bit shocking to me in terms of how many people actually are aware of what training courses. And obviously we've got a lot of members, so maybe it's a job for us to take on of people understanding what's actually available in their memberships, what webinars are available, what templates, tools. Because when I looked at the report, that number was a little bit higher in terms of non-engagement than I would have liked to have seen. But again, it all links into that career progression and people not knowing what's available.
Yes, and I totally agree with you, Kat, because when I looked at it, clearly, because the survey, the results themselves aren't just from our members. This is a survey that went across a lot of our communities, and I was slightly shocked about people weren't not even aware of the training that's out there for them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be through the Accounts Payable Association, but there are lots of organisations, training providers, such as Richard and the Bottomline team. I know that you put a lot of time and effort into supporting your customer base about training, education as well. So there's lots of resource, there's lots of videos online that people can go onto YouTube and watch. But to see those as a slightly lower number, I guess for both of our organisations, for Bottomline in terms of there's still big opportunity to improve payment processes, and in the APA world, yes, there's still lots of people to go to talk to see whether we can support them with a bit of training as well. So look, as we start to wrap up today's session, we tried to keep it to 30 minutes. Could you both just give me some key takeaways and sort of any feedback you got in terms of the overriding report? What are we looking forward to as we start to deliver this report throughout the year? Because I know that both organisations will be using this data. So if you don't mind, Richard, can I just start with yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. I just wanted to start by saying we're really pleased to have partnered with the APA on this excellent piece of work. So I hope everyone can take something away from this to help with their own career, moving their department forward and moving their business forward as well. So there's so much insight. It would be remiss of anyone to do that. So key takeaways are: look at who owns your payment process and become part of that. Remember that fraud is always going to be there. So look at those processes of review. You can't stop doing that. Don't be afraid of AI in terms of how it's going to improve your job. It's going to just, as I said, it will take away some of those annoying edges to what you do. If I look at AI and some of the businesses I've been talking to recently, businesses are starting to build policies around how they use AI sort of responsibly and sensibly within their organization. And what we know is organizations don't want AI necessarily to make important business decisions. So help you come up with the information that helps you with the decision, but pressing the button, it is going to be a person, I believe, at the end of the day. There's too much at stake for a computer to decide that this payment is going to take precedence over this. So this invoice will be paid over this. So too many pieces of the pie. So yes, it will improve. I wouldn't be it's not going to take jobs. I think it's just there to make life easier. So yeah, I think, as I said at the start, really pleased to have been involved in this piece of work. But there's so much in there. Having had an early view of it, it's just excellent research. It's going to really help. It really help me and the customers I speak to, definitely.
Perfect. Thank you, Richard, and thank you for those words again. And I'll reiterate the same. So, when we sort of created the report itself, and we partnered up with yourselves at Bottomline, I think it worked really, really well in terms of the nature of the questions, how this has worked in terms of the distribution to get the results. The next part is to distribute the results and then obviously drill down and see whether we can support, because this is an annual survey. It's really the first one we've done of this size and nature. So we're delighted to have our team, the team at Bottomline, support with the excellent work that's gone in. But this is the start. We've really got to start putting the effort in now to distribute, to make sure people are aware of this. So thank you, Richard. Kat, your final views on terms of the key takeaways and any feedback?
Yeah, sort of just echoing what Richard said, that fraud is kind of that golden thread that just runs through everything within AP. So just always be aware of it, keep it on your radar, and try and educate your team, which links into that piece around making the education around AP part of your day. It shouldn't be something that you're just expecting people to go and do in their own time, which I know, trust me, I appreciate that's a difficult ask. Whether you do it via learning lunches, obviously, if you are a member of ours, look at what resources there, look what other resources are out in the business. I recommended a Bottomline podcast to one of our members the other week, and it's answered all the questions I couldn't. So just really look at that piece of it not being a nice to have, that it is part of your day, and whether you're in a leadership position or not, if you're not, ask for it.
Perfect. Thank you, Kat. And absolutely spot on. So look, before we sort of close today's session, let's just remind people firstly how to get hold of the pack. So I'm going to press a button. I'm sure Richard's well impressed with my technical skills here. Look, I can press buttons and things happen at the bottom. You said tech, you know. So just as a reminder, to get hold of this report and the week's pack, AP week, please jump on our website, our events page /event. You'll see it on there, a register interest, which if you fill out that form, you will then be sent this pack plus lots of other information about how you can get involved in Accounts Payable Appreciation Week. So Kat, come on, tell us a little bit about AP Week. What's happening in the week? I think we've got a little forum as well, which I know Richard's going to come along. Yeah. So just give us a bit of detail before we finish for today.
So our famous Accounts Payable Appreciation Week runs from May the 19th to the 23rd. Obviously, we encourage you guys to turn the internet blue, celebrate your team, celebrate your successes, have a bit of fun. You can make it as educational or just as fun and based. We've obviously worked on some stuff that we're going to launch that week as part of the pack, but we do have a little event on the Wednesday on the 21st. So it's our leadership and influencer forum. So we've got some fantastic panels. We've got one by Bottomline on champions in business. We've got panels on e-invoicing, on compliance and regulations, and we have one on AI as well. So it's quite an eclectic mix, but also we'll be announcing on influencers for the 2025-2026 year. So looking forward to that. We're going to have a little graduation ceremony. And then I believe after that, we've got the Midland Shared Services Awards that we're sort of sponsoring together. So very interesting week. Jamie, you'll know this. You and I are on the road a little bit, visiting members during the week as well. So you never know, we might pop up in people's posts and photos. I'm just going for the cake, to be honest. I'm hoping there's going to be cakes at all these places. It's the only reason I'll leave Newcastle.
Listen, I'm with you. I know that we're on the road most of that week. I think we've got customers to see most days, and we've got the forum 21st, which is the Wednesday. The other bit I'd mention is to make the week a lot more interactive this year. So not only you can download the templates, you can get access to the survey results and all the great things that we provide. And this is global, by the way. If you're watching this around the world, this is not just the UK and Ireland. This is a global event. So please get involved. We are very aware of time zones. So we do stuff in the morning, the evening, and the afternoon. So we try to vary it up a lot. So we get all our friends and colleagues from around the world involved. But we also, this year, we've very recently, sort of introduced a brand new community platform where people and our members can interact. We're opening that up to the community at large. So for the 5 days, you can jump into the community. You can do the 5-day challenge. Now, I have no idea what the challenge is. I'm hoping it is, like Kat says, eating cake, but I guess it's going to be a bit more difficult than that. You can jump into the community. You can come and meet ourselves, meet lots of our partners who will be in that community, but more importantly, get involved, see what it's all about, jump into that community for 5 days. And then at the end of that week, depending on how active you've been, I believe there's some prizes. There's some badges, there's some prizes. There's even these things called streaks. Now, Richard, you and I probably won't know what this is. Kat will know what this is. Some sort of social gathering that if you do things for a period of time, you get a streak. My daughter's been telling me about it for years. No idea what she was going on about. But we've got the ability on our new platform to do streaks as well, whatever that means. But look, the most important part is we really promote it. As Kat says, it's where we turn the airways blue. And what we mean by that is we don't start swearing, but we make it all the corporate-y blue of the AP world. And we absolutely want you to have a good time, get involved, promote all the great work that you and your teams do throughout the year, not just for this particular week. But as they say, you've got to be in it to win it. So please make sure you go onto our website, download the pack, which you should be available from today onwards. And then just watch out, look out for the actual live week itself. I know that, Kat, you're going live a couple of times during the week. I might jump on a couple of those. And I know that Richard, who is the pun master, last year we did a live session and we had Take That round the corner. And Richard wrote a comedy scene from the best of them and put the puns in. I have no idea what he's going to plan this year.
Too much pressure now, Jamie.
But and again, I think Richard agrees that last year's forum was amazing.
Yeah.
We had some of the sort of UK and Ireland's leading forces who joined us, and like Kat says, we have our graduation ceremony of the 2025 APA Key Influencers, and we're sort of humbled and delighted to have a whole big team from within that key influencer who will join us as well. So look, thank you so much, Richard, for joining us today for this live. Please, as I said, jump on that live link, and if you're watching this on replay, below you'll see all the details you will need. Kat, thank you very much for doing this today. 30 minutes to the exact second. We will hopefully see you live either on the day on the 21st or during AP week. Thank you both, and I'll speak to everybody again soon.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, Jamie. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Kat.